My parents publicly shamed me and praised my brother. This hurt. Now they came to me needing help and asked me for things, but what I did made them unable to speak. I am a 35-year-old man who owns a furniture business in Denver. It sounds like my life is good, right? But my family did not know anything about this until a few months ago. This story is long, so get ready. I grew up in a regular suburb. My family had one rule that no one said out loud. My brother Larry, who is 38 years old, never did anything wrong in their eyes. I never did anything right. Larry is 3 years older than me. He had perfect grades in school. He was the captain of all the sports teams. My parents treated him like he was the best person in the world. But I was the disappointment in the family. My parents acted like the air I breathed should have gone to Larry instead. One time, I heard my dad talking to a neighbor on the phone. He talked about me like I had a small, unimportant job. He said, "Alex works at Boeing. He does some small job with planes or something." But I was actually designing important parts for defense planes. My parents started comparing us to each other when we were very young. When I was 6 years old, I built a small playhouse. My dad said it was not built well. Then he kicked it down to show me how to build it right. That same week, Larry stacked some toy blocks. My parents acted like he had built a famous building. I am not making this up. When I turned 8 years old, I understood how important I was to my family. Larry had a baseball game on my birthday. My parents changed my party day without telling me. I came home from school excited for my party, but the house was empty. Everyone was at Larry's game. My aunt drove me home. She looked confused because no one was home. I sat on the front porch for 2 hours. It was raining a little in Denver. I got wet and wondered if I had the wrong day for my party. When my family came home, my mom just said, "We will have your party tomorrow." But they never did. I got my birthday gifts a week later. They were not wrapped and were in a store bag. I am telling the truth. For my 16th birthday, my parents paid for driving lessons with the cheapest teacher in town. The teacher was an old man named Earl. He smelled like cigarettes. He kept falling asleep when I was driving with him. One time he fell asleep and almost caused an accident. I almost drove into cars coming toward us. When I told my parents, they said I was making it sound worse than it was. But for Larry's 16th birthday, my parents bought him a used Audi car. My dad said Larry needed the car to visit colleges. I acted like I did not care. For the next year, I had to ask people for rides or take 3 buses to go places. Larry drove around with his friends in his car. High school graduation showed how my family treated us differently. Larry's graduation photos were on our living room wall in nice frames. My photo was in a cheap frame on a bookshelf behind a plant. When Larry got into Stanford University, my dad bought him a BMW car and had a big party with their rich friends. When I got into Washington State University, with some help paying for it, which was hard to get, my parents sent me a text message saying, "Good job," while they were on vacation in Hawaii. They did not ask me to go with them because they said there was not enough room where they were staying. I found out later that they had a place with 3 bedrooms. When I was 25 years old, I did what my family expected of me. I had a good job as an engineer at Boeing, making $95,000. It was not a great job, but it was good enough that my parents could tell people about it without being ashamed. But Larry made $250,000 at his job at a big company, and he got extra money each year that was more than what I made in a whole year. At every family event, people only talked about Larry. They would say things like, "Larry just made another big business deal," or "Larry bought a vacation house in Aspen." I would just smile and nod while I drank too much at family dinners. My relatives would ask me if I still worked at the airplane company like it was just a temporary job. Larry would offer to help me get a job at his company like I needed his help. Then something surprising happened. I found out I liked working with wood. It started as something to do on weekends to get away from my office job. The man who fixed things in my apartment building saw me trying to fix a broken chair. He showed me his workroom in the basement. He used to build things with wood for his job, but stopped because he did not like working outside in the cold Denver winters. He said I could use his tools if I helped him fix things in the building. I found out I was good at working with wood. I liked making raw wood into useful things. There were no office problems or job reviews, just wood, tools, and things I could touch that I made. Soon, I was making coffee tables that my friends all wanted. One time, my friend's wife gave me $300 in cash at a party and said quietly, "Do not tell anyone I paid this much." This was the first time I felt like I was really good at doing something. My two friends from college, Raj and Mitch, kept telling me I should do more with my woodwork. Raj worked in marketing for an outdoor store and knew that people in Denver would pay a lot of money for things made by hand. He always said, "Do you know that people pay $4,000 for tables that are not as good as the ones you make?" Mitch ran his father's building company and knew people who design home interiors and charge a lot of money for their work. Something important happened at Christmas in 2018. Larry had just gotten a better job at work. During dinner, he talked for 20 minutes about the extra money he would get. My parents looked very happy while he talked. When he finally stopped talking about the large amount of money he would get, my dad turned to me and said, "I guess Alex got a nice ham from his company for Christmas, right, son?" Everyone laughed like it was very funny. My mom touched my hand and said, "Having a job that you can keep is good, dear." She talked to me like I needed help. I quit my job at Boeing the next day. I did not tell my family. They thought I still worked there, designing airplane parts. Instead, I started learning from an old man from Finland named Frank who made furniture in a workshop in Reno. He paid me only $16 per hour, which was not much money. But what he taught me was very valuable. Frank had made furniture for Bill Gates' house in the 1990s. He was very skilled and thought cheap furniture was terrible. Frank had a helper named Victor. Victor had been in the army and had fought in Afghanistan 3 times. He started working with wood to help with his mental health problems from being in the war. Victor was very strong and had tattoos all over his body. His hands never shook, and he could make very detailed carvings in wood. Victor rarely talked, but when he did, everyone listened. The first day I met him, he looked at my hands and said, "Your soft hands from office work will not last 1 week here." That was how he greeted me. Victor was the only person Frank trusted to use his best tools. Sometimes when Victor's mental health problems were bad, he would sleep in the workshop. Sometimes I would come to work in the morning and find out he had been working since 3 a.m. Frank taught me the traditional ways to work with wood. Victor taught me how to work when I was very tired, how to keep working when my hands were hurt and bleeding, and how to finish work on time even when it seemed impossible, without making the work worse. Victor worked very hard. I learned many things from them. I learned how to choose good wood, how to put pieces of wood together, how to work with special kinds of wood, and how to work with clients who had a lot of money but not good taste. Frank called me the engineer and often told me that my first 50 pieces of furniture would be bad. He said that after that, maybe I could make something good enough for someone to use. Frank did not believe in giving prizes just for trying. My first month working there was very hard. If I was even 1 minute late, Victor would wake me up at 5 in the morning by throwing ice water on me. My soft hands from my office job got blisters, then they would bleed, then get blisters again until they became tough. One time, I cut my thumb open while using a special Japanese saw. Victor sewed my thumb closed right there in the workshop using fishing line. He did not let me take a day off from work. He would say, "Wood does not care if you feel bad," while I tried not to faint from the pain. Frank just watched me and sometimes made a sound of approval when I did not complain about the pain. The worst day was when I spent 70 hours making my first piece of furniture for a client. It was a desk for the wife of a man who worked at a technology company. I was very proud of the desk. Frank looked at it one time and found 12 problems that I had not even noticed. Then he made me take the whole desk apart and build it again. I almost quit that day. Victor saw me putting my things away and said, "Is that it? You give up after one problem? No wonder you will never be better than your brother." I do not know how he knew about my brother Larry. I never talked about my family to them. But what he said made me stay. I built that desk 2 more times, and finally Frank nodded and said, "This desk is good enough for my workshop." Frank was right about my first furniture. It was built well, but it had no feeling or special quality. I made furniture like I was solving an engineering problem. The furniture was strong, but not interesting. Then one day, I understood how to make furniture with meaning. I started making pieces that told stories. I made a dining table with blue material that looked like a river running through wood from old buildings in Denver that were 100 years old. I made desks with metal from an old brewery in town. I mixed metal and wood together. I used the exact skills from my engineering job and combined them with the natural beauty of wood. I worked at Frank's workshop at night and on weekends. I learned as much as I could and developed my own way of making furniture. My hands became tough and hard. My back always hurt, but for the first time, I was making things that I was truly proud of. Even Victor started to treat me with some respect. Sometimes he would nod at my work instead of just telling me what was wrong with it. Coming from Victor, this was like getting a big round of applause. After 6 months, something bad happened. My cousin Tina saw me carrying wood at a wood supply store on a Tuesday when I should have been at my job at Boeing. She did not say hello to me. She just took a picture with her phone from her car and sent it to my mom. The message said, "I guess Alex lost his engineering job. I saw him working at a wood store today. Haha." Within 1 hour, many people called and texted me. My dad sent me a text with just 4 words. "Home. Now we talk." Going to my parents' big house that night felt like going to court when everyone already thought I was guilty. My mom, dad, Larry, and his wife Heather were sitting in the living room. They looked like they were having a serious family meeting. My dad sat in his expensive chair. My mom sat on the edge of the sofa like she might need to leave quickly. Larry sat with his legs spread apart on the leather couch, and his wife had her hand on his knee. Before I could sit down, my dad threw his phone at me like he was throwing food to a dog. The phone showed the picture and message from my cousin. My dad said, "Explain this." I tried to tell them about my furniture business. I told them I was learning from a skilled craftsman and that I planned to open my own workshop. I even showed them photos of furniture I had made and sold for good money. Larry laughed loudly like I had told him something very silly. He said, "You are giving up a good engineering job to become a person who fixes things? Really, Alex?" Heather touched her expensive bracelet and said in a fake, worried voice, "It is also a very physical job. What will you do if you hurt your back? Not everyone can become a manager in an office job easily." My mom finally looked up, but not at my photos. She looked past me at the wall with family photos. All the photos were of Larry and his achievements. She said, "What will I tell my friends at the club? They just asked me last week how you were doing at Boeing." My dad stood up and fixed his shirt. He said words I will never forget. "No son of mine will quit engineering to become a carpenter as a hobby. This is shameful. Fix your mistake and get your old job back, or do not come home for Christmas." Larry smiled and said, "Maybe I can make some phone calls if people at Boeing are angry with you for leaving." That was the moment something changed in my mind. It was not like in a movie, but in a quiet way when you finally understand something clearly. These people were not there to support me. They were there to judge me. I stood up and said, "You know what? I'm fine. Keep your Christmas." My mom said, "Do not be dramatic." I said, "I am not being dramatic. I am done trying to meet rules that always change. Larry's rules, your rules, everyone's rules, but not my rules." My dad said, "This is not about Larry." I replied, "It has always been about Larry, and that is okay. He is your favorite, but I am done being like a planet that goes around him." I walked out. I did not slam the door or make a big scene. I just closed the door quietly, and I felt a strange light feeling, like I had put down a heavy weight that I had carried for too long. After leaving my family behind, I put all my effort into the only thing that had ever felt right to me. When Frank was ready to retire and had no children who wanted to take over his business, I told him I wanted to buy his workshop. He laughed like I had told a joke. He said, "With what money, engineer?" But he saw something in me, maybe the same strong will he had when he was my age. He offered to sell me his tools and his list of clients. I could pay him over 5 years. No banks, no papers to sign, just a handshake between us. That was the kind of person Frank was. He believed in doing things the old way.
Victor surprised everyone by asking if he could keep working there if I bought the business. The tough man had decided that I was not completely useless. He said, "You need someone who knows what they are doing," which was as close to a compliment as I had ever heard from him. Frank looked surprised, but nodded like he agreed with Victor's decision. I asked my friends Raj and Mitch to join me. Raj was tired of selling expensive camping equipment to men who worked in technology but would never actually camp outside. Mitch did not want to keep building houses that all looked the same for his father's company. We used all our savings. I put in $95,000, which was all the money I had from my Boeing job, plus my savings. Raj put in $60,000, and Mitch put in $80,000. We also got a $150,000 loan for the business, using my apartment as a promise to pay back the money. We kept Frank's workshop in Reno. I will not tell you the real name of our business, but let's call it Grain and Timber. When we signed the final papers, Frank gave me a small wooden box he had made. Inside were his special wood carving tools that had belonged to his father.
All he said was, "Do not mess this up." Victor stood in the corner with his arms crossed and just nodded one time at me. Coming from these two men, this felt like they were honoring me. The first 2 years were very hard for me. My body, mind, and money all suffered. I worked 18 hours each day, bent over my work table. I ate only cheap noodles, drank coffee, and took pain medicine. My hands would crack and bleed during the dry winters in Denver. Most nights I showered at the workshop because I was too tired to drive home. One night, I cut my hand on a saw because I was too tired to pay attention. We did not have enough money to pay workers, so Raj did the marketing work while also working at night at a store. Mitch managed our clients while still working part-time for his father. I worked so much that my back stayed bent over my work table. The workshop became my whole life. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, work until 11 at night, sleep on a small bed in the back room, and do the same thing the next day. The first year was very difficult. I wanted to give up at least once every month. We would get jobs where the money we made barely paid for the materials. I would spend 80 hours making a table, but when I sold it, I made only about $8 for each hour I worked. The electricity company turned off the power at my apartment because I forgot to pay the bill for 3 months. I was hardly at my apartment anyway. Victor let me sleep on his couch for a week. He would wake me up at 4 in the morning, throw cold water on me, and tell me to stop feeling sorry for myself. It was a tough way to show he cared, but it helped me. I started to think that maybe my family was right. Maybe I was just crazy and failing. I actually called the human resources office at Boeing to ask if I could get my old job back. The day after I showed weakness by calling Boeing, we got our first big opportunity. Slowly, we found the right customers for our work. We did not sell to very rich people. We sold to people who understood good quality. We sold to people who worked in technology and had grandfathers who worked with wood. We sold to families who had lived in Denver for a long time and liked wood from local trees. We sold to young people who were buying their first nice dining table with money from their job bonuses. Our big opportunity came from a writer named Samantha. She wrote for magazines about design and had many followers on Instagram. She was not a fake person who just tries to sell things. She was a real writer with good taste. She came into our workshop looking for a special desk for her apartment in Denver. I remember being annoyed because she interrupted me while I was trying to finish a piece of furniture by a deadline. Surprisingly, Victor was the one who stopped his work to show her around while I kept working. She watched me work for an hour without saying anything while I was putting together a cabinet. Finally, she said, "You are not trying to sell yourselves in the right way. You are not selling furniture. You are selling stories." She touched a piece of wood I was working with and asked, "Where is this wood from?" It was from a tree that was 120 years old and fell during a storm at City Park. I knew the whole story because I had collected the wood myself. She made me tell her the story of every piece of furniture in our workshop, where the wood came from, what the building was used for before it was torn down, and who might have touched the wood before. 2 weeks later, she wrote a 4-page article about us in a Denver magazine. She wrote about how each piece of furniture carried the history of Denver. The photos she took made our dusty workshop look like a special place for making beautiful things by hand. We specialized in making furniture that had stories.
We made tables from wood saved from old Denver buildings that were 100 years old. We made desks with steel from an old brewery. We made headboards for beds from wood from trees that fell during famous storms. Each piece of furniture came with a card that told its story. Samantha suggested this and it became our special thing. News about us spread quickly. Her article was shared on design websites. A person who was famous online bought one of our tables with a river-like design and posted a picture of it mentioning our business. I said no to most orders that needed to be done quickly and to clients who were difficult to work with. I did not want to become a brand that only sold very expensive things. Samantha started visiting our shop often. She brought designers and magazine editors to see our work. She never asked for money for sending customers to us. She truly believed in what we were doing. By the third year, people had to wait 6 months to get furniture from us. We hired 2 young men from a local trade school to learn from us. They reminded me of myself when I started. They wanted to learn but needed someone to give them a chance. We opened a small store in a Denver neighborhood where people could see and touch our furniture. By the 5th year, we had 8 employees and had rented the space next to our first workshop. During all this time, I still sent my parents $5,000 every Christmas. Not because they needed the money. My father's dental business made plenty of money. I sent it because I was still their son, even if they did not act like it. They always cashed the checks within a few days. They never called me. I heard news about Larry from other family members and on social media. His job at the big company took him to New York, then for a short time to London, and then back to Denver where he became a vice president. Each time he moved, the family sent emails to everyone like it was very important news. Meanwhile, I built a successful business that made $3.2 million each year with good profits, but I did it quietly. 5 years after I left my parents' house, our furniture business had grown a lot. We had our main workshop, a store in Reno, another location in Boulder, and 18 employees. 4 of our employees were young people we had trained from the beginning. I bought a small house in Berkeley. It was not fancy, but it was close enough to ride my bike to the workshop, and I paid for it completely. I went on dates sometimes, but I mostly put all my energy into the business. Some nights, I wondered if my family ever thought about me, but this did not happen often. I was too busy to think about it. Then in 2022, the economy got bad. Technology companies suffered. Amazon stopped hiring new people. Microsoft started firing workers. And suddenly, Denver's housing market became unstable. People who had been using money from stocks and loans on their homes found that they had spent too much money. I heard from my cousin that Larry's bank had started reducing their number of workers. Larry was fired during the 3rd round of job cuts. According to Family Talk, the money they gave him when he lost his job was okay, but it would not last long. They had a house payment, private school for their children, and a vacation home to pay for. While Larry was quickly updating his online job profile in a panic, my business actually did well during the bad economy. We did not sell to people who buy and sell houses quickly for profit. Our clients were people who had saved money to buy quality furniture that they would keep for many years. We kept our 6-month waiting list by changing our prices a little and offering payment plans. Victor showed how valuable he was during this time. He had been through bad economies before and knew how to run a business with less money. He found a way to reduce our wasted materials by almost 30% without making our products worse quality. He could look at pieces of wood that most people would throw away and see exactly how to make them into products we could sell. He started teaching our apprentices how to make smaller things from these leftover wood pieces when business was slow. We even started making a line of less expensive items, like cutting boards, shelves for walls, and small tables. This kept money coming in and gave our apprentices work to do when we had fewer big orders. I refused to fire any of our workers. Instead, I reduced my own salary and worked with everyone else to keep the business going. Samantha helped us again by writing an article about how our furniture business could survive the bad economy. She wrote about how we were changing our business instead of making it smaller. She included a photo of Victor teaching 2 apprentices how to make good things from wood pieces that people would throw away. Victor did not like having his picture taken, but he did it because it was good for the business. After that article, our smaller items started selling very quickly, faster than we could make them. This gave us a steady flow of money that helped us get through the worst part of the bad economy. My cousin told me that Larry had to sell their vacation home and take their children out of private school. Heather had to get a license to sell houses to try to make some money. Larry did not have a job, but could not admit it. It seemed they had been using credit cards for years, trying to look rich when they could not afford it. This was typical of Larry, all appearance, no real substance. Still, I never heard directly from my family. Not a text message, not an email, not even a message asking if I was okay. While I was hearing all about their money problems from other family members, they did not care enough to check if I was doing okay in the same bad economy. My aunt told me that when people at their club asked about me, my parents would say I had gone to find myself or that I was working with my hands somewhere. I sent one last check for Christmas in December 2022 with a note that said, "Last one, hope it helps." They cashed the check the next day. They did not say thank you or acknowledge it in any way. At that moment, I finally understood something important. I realized I had been hoping that someday they would see me as someone of value. I thought that if I became successful, they would finally notice me. But the truth was simpler and more difficult to accept. They just did not care. They did not care if I succeeded or failed. I was just not important enough for them to think about. So I stopped caring about them too. I deleted the fake Facebook account I sometimes used to look at their pages. I told my extended family that I did not want to hear news about my parents and brother. I put all my attention into my business, my few real friends, and the community of people who work with wood that I had become part of. I started teaching young people who are having troubles in life through a local program. I taught them basic woodworking skills. Most of these young people had never made anything with their hands before. Watching them make real things and seeing how proud they were when they finished a simple shelf or box reminded me why I fell in love with working with wood in the first place. Surprisingly, Victor joined me in this work. I found out that he had been working for years with former soldiers who had mental health problems from being in war. He taught them woodworking as a way to help them feel better. He never talked about this. That was typical of Victor, but he was wonderful with the troubled young people, especially the very angry ones. He would notice the young person standing alone in the corner, the one who seemed ready to get angry or leave, and he would know exactly what to say to them. He would say things like, "You think you are tough? Try making this wood joint perfect with your shaking hands." He would challenge them,
not treat them like babies, and they responded well to his direct honesty. 3 of our current apprentices came from that program. I dated a woman named Ellie who taught kindergarten for almost a year. She was nice, smart, funny, and independent. She wanted us to live together and maybe think about having children, but I could not do it. I could not risk letting someone get that close to me. The one time she asked about my family and why they never called me, I completely stopped talking. She deserved better than someone with my emotional problems. We broke up in a friendly way, and I went back to my workshop and my life alone. Victor, who never talked about personal things, looked at me after Ellie left for the last time and said, "Running away from your past does not make it go away." Then he went back to his work like he had not just said something very wise. Then came the day that changed everything. I was in our store in Reno drawing design ideas for a couple. They had saved money for 3 years to buy a special dining table that they would keep forever. They were celebrating 10 years of marriage and wanted a table made from local wood that they could someday give to their children. This was my favorite kind of project. People who understood the value of good quality and a good story, not just buying expensive things to impress their friends. I was in the middle of talking about wood patterns when our front desk manager, Emma, interrupted my concentration. I heard her say, "Sir, as I explained, we do not make furniture quickly. You would have to wait at least 7 months." I looked up and saw Emma, who usually stays calm, looking very stressed. Standing across from her was my entire family. My father's face was red, and he was leaning over the desk like he does with his dental assistants when they question him. My mother stood with her arms crossed, with her lips pressed together like she does when people who work for her do not do what she wants. Larry and his wife Heather stood behind with their 2 children, looking impatient and acting like they deserved special treatment, as always. I stood still and could not move. 5 years with no contact, and here they were, coming into the one place I had built for myself. I should have walked away. I should have let Emma deal with them. But something made me go toward them. Not hope or love, just a strong curiosity about why they were there. I asked, "Is there a problem?" as I walked toward them. They did not recognize me at first. 5 years of physical work had changed my body. I used to have a soft body from my office job, but now I had strong muscles from carrying wood and working at my workbench all day. The flannel shirt and denim work pants I wore were very different from the nice business clothes they remembered me wearing. My beard and rough hands completed how different I looked. My father spoke first, without looking directly at me. He said, "Yes, there is a problem. We need a dining table for an important dinner party next month, and this woman says it takes 7 months. That is ridiculous. We are willing to pay extra money." Before I could answer, the door to the store opened and Connor walked in. Connor is the quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks football team and had become a friend and a customer. He saw me and said, "Alex, you are exactly the person I wanted to see." Everyone turned to look at him. Connor walked over with the confidence that professional athletes have. He said, "Man, that media cabinet you built for us is amazing. My wife Sarah has posted pictures of it on Instagram about 20 times. Her followers love it." He shook my hand with real warmth. I had built some furniture for his home last year. Nothing fancy, just good quality work that he appreciated. He said, "Everyone keeps asking who made it. You are about to get many calls from the whole football team." Larry's mouth actually dropped open in surprise. My father's face changed from looking down on me to looking confused in just a few seconds. Connor looked at my family and seemed to feel the tension between us. He said, "Sorry to interrupt, are these customers?" I said simply, "No, just some people who came in with expectations we cannot meet." Connor laughed and patted my shoulder. He said, "It's their loss. Call me about that special dog bed we talked about. My dog Brutus deserves the best." He left the store, giving a high five to one of my apprentices who was putting color on a table near the door. The silence that followed was very heavy. My mother recognized me first. She put her hand to her throat in that dramatic way she does when she is shocked. She said, "Alex, is that you?" My father narrowed his eyes, trying to understand what was happening. Larry just stared at me. His face showed confusion and maybe jealousy. For once in his life, he was not the person everyone was paying attention to. Victor came out from the back workshop carrying a large piece of walnut wood for another project. He immediately understood the situation. His eyes narrowed as he looked at me, then at my family, then back at me. He did not say anything, but he stood near the counter with his arms crossed over his chest. He looked like a guard with his beard and tattoos. The message was clear. He would support me if this situation became bad. I said calmly to Emma, "Please show the Millers the Maplewood options we talked about. I will be with you in a moment." I turned to my family. "I am sorry, but we cannot help you. As Emma explained, you would have to wait 7 months. We make no exceptions." My mother started to speak with a fake shaky voice. "Alex, we had no idea that—" I finished her sentence. "That I was successful? Or that I existed at all? It has been 5 years. Not one phone call, not one text message, just checks that you cashed." My father tried to sound both in charge and desperate at the same time. "Son, we should talk about this in private." I replied, "There is nothing to talk about, and this is private. This is my business and my life. You are not part of it." Heather stepped forward. She always tries to manage social situations. She said, "Alex, we are family. Families have fights, then they make up. The children would love to know their uncle." I looked at her 2 children who were busy playing on their iPads. They did not notice the family problem happening at all. I had never even met them. Their backpacks had their names on them, Aiden and Madison. They were my nephew and niece, and they would not know who I was if they saw me on the street. Larry finally said, "We need this table." His voice did not have its usual confidence. He said, "It is for a dinner with people who might invest money in my new company. I am starting my own business, and first impressions are important." I almost laughed. Of course that was why they were there. Not to reconnect with me, not to say sorry, but because they needed something from me. Larry's new business was probably just him trying to save his career after losing his job. And of course, an expensive table would fix everything. My father added, "We are willing to pay however much it costs."
as if money would fix everything. Money was the solution to all problems in their world. I said, looking at each of them, "You do not understand. I do not want your money, and I do not make exceptions."
Not even for family, especially not for family. My mother started to say something, but I called out to Kate, our operations manager, who was watching from across the store. I said, "Kate, please show these people out and put their names on our list of people who are not allowed in our store." My father said, "Wait." His voice was smaller than I had ever heard it. He asked, "Can we at least talk about this? Maybe you could come to dinner at our house this weekend." I looked at each of them for the first time in years. My father looked older and weaker than I remembered. My mother had new lines around her eyes. Larry had the desperate look of someone watching his life fall apart. For a second, I felt a small feeling, not quite pity, not quite missing the past. I finally said, "No, I do not think I will." I turned my back on them for the second time in my life and walked toward my office. I called over my shoulder, "Kate, if they are not gone in 2 minutes, call security." I did not look back to see if they left. I did not need to. That night, I was alone in my workshop after everyone had gone home. I ran my hands over a piece of 200-year-old redwood that I had been saving for something special. Then I heard the back door open. It was Victor. He rarely stayed this late. Without saying anything, he brought a stool over and sat across from me. For a few minutes, we just sat quietly. He looked at my face while I traced the patterns in the redwood with my fingers. He said, "Those people were your family." He reached into his pocket and threw something onto the workbench. It was a bronze coin with smooth edges from being handled a lot. He said, 10 years sober. He told me he got it 2 weeks before I started working there. I looked up, surprised. He had never shared anything personal before. He continued, "My family gave up on me after I started drinking again for the 3rd time. I cannot blame them. I was a mess after the war in Afghanistan. But here is the important thing. I did not stop drinking for them. I did it for myself. The same reason you built all this for yourself." He stood up, clearly uncomfortable with saying so many words at once. He said, "I just thought you should know. Walking away from them again was the right thing to do." With that, he turned and walked to the door. He stopped only to add, "I am taking tomorrow off. It is the first time in 3 years. Do not burn the place down while I am gone." That was probably the most Victor had ever said to me at one time, and it was exactly what I needed to hear. I thought about my family coming to see me like that, the desperate look on their faces. For years, I had imagined a moment like this. I thought about them seeing that I was successful, them needing me for once. I thought it would feel like winning. Instead, it just felt empty. What is the point of proving yourself to people who never really saw you as you are? Samantha came to the workshop yesterday. She is now engaged to an architect. They want us to make all the furniture for their new home. She brought me a gift, a small wood carving from Japan. She said, "This is for the man who has everything except family." I must have looked surprised because she added, "Victor talks more than you think." Then she asked me, "What would you do if you were me? Would you take them back, help them, or keep walking away?" I still do not know the answer. Maybe there is no one perfect answer. Maybe it is okay to just keep building my business and see what happens in the future. Victor would probably just say, "Stop thinking too much and get back to work." That was probably the most Victor had ever said to me at one time, and it was exactly what I needed to hear. I thought about my family coming to see me like that, the desperate look on their faces. For years, I had imagined a moment like this. I thought about them seeing that I was successful, them needing me for once. I thought it would feel like winning. Instead, it just felt empty. What is the point of proving yourself to people who never really saw you as you are? Samantha came to the workshop yesterday. She is now engaged to an architect. They want us to make all the furniture for their new home. She brought me a gift, a small wood carving from Japan. She said, "This is for the man who has everything except family." I must have looked surprised because she added, "Victor talks more than you think." Then she asked me, "What would you do if you were me? Would you take them back, help them, or keep walking away?" I still do not know the answer. Maybe there is no one perfect answer. Maybe it is okay to just keep building my business and see what happens in the future. Victor would probably just say, "Stop thinking too much and get back to work."